Merry Christmas from PCA. We're so excited about cooking with you and excited to have Zara share a great recipe with us.
Yeah, we have all of the things that she put on the ingredient list. We're about to cook up the pasta, hopefully the tiramisu as well. If you look, we have double because we're doing it with the family. But you could do it with a friend, you could do it with your husband. Anything to bring you and have a great night together, cooking and doing something different. We hope you enjoy it, and we thank you so much for the way that you trust us to be your IT leaders.
So here we go.
Thank you, Ted and Stephanie, for this wonderful opportunity. I think this is such a creative and cool idea to do for your company and your work family, and I'm really humbled to be a part of it. With that said, let me do a little bit of an introduction. Stephanie and Ted have done a great job of giving you a bio as well, and I really appreciate that. My name is Zara Abassi, and I live here in Little Rock, and I am a local chef and pastry chef. You can find out a little bit more about me on my Instagram at Zara Made It. I was going to say .com, but it's not a .com. But with that said, let's get started with our recipe today. So what we're making today is going to be a fun and flavorful dish that doesn't take a lot of ingredients, doesn't take a lot of time, but it comes together pretty quickly and it's kind of impressive. So if you need a fun date night idea, this is a wonderful thing to make. If you need a good family-friendly idea, this is a great thing to make. So what we're making today is essentially pasta with a great sausage cream sauce, but what we're doing is using a specific kind of pasta. You can use rigatoni too if you want to, but the reason we're using orecchiette is because this, I'll open this box up, and it doesn't matter what brand you get because, you know, it's pasta. But I'll show you why we are choosing this pasta today instead of like spaghetti or linguine or something. You can see that this one has a little bit of a bowl shape. So this is really great for when you have creamy sauces because this traps all of that in there. Instead of you having to scoop it up, you have a little helper that does that. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and boil this to instructions. I've already got some salted water boiling. Make sure you salt your water because you wanna make sure that your pasta has flavor on it. It's kind of bland on its own, obviously. So if you add a little bit of salt, it helps accentuate that flavor. So I've already got that going. So if you need to hit pause and get your water started, go ahead. Okay, now that our pasta is boiling, that shouldn't take too long. So just follow the instructions that are on your box or package and just make sure that it comes to al dente. You don't want it to be too soft because it's gonna be mushy and it's gonna fall apart on you. And then let's get to the rest of our ingredients. I'm gonna go over what we should all have together in case anybody's missing something. So you have a pound of sausage and you can choose, and it needs to be ground. It doesn't need to be the smoked sausage or the pre-cooked sausage. Because it's not going to be the same. So pick either turkey, pork, or chicken, whichever one you like. It also doesn't even matter if you pick something that's flavored and herbed versus something that's bland, because we're going to flavor it as well. So what I got is turkey ground sausage, and it has herbs in there already, and I believe it's sage, oregano, and maybe a little bit of thyme. So you can do that. Or again, just get plain ground sausage, but it needs to be ground. Then you have your garlic, your onions, your fresh herbs. Make sure that you get them to be fresh. We have a couple of sprigs of thyme and some rosemary. And then you need some good Parmesan. You can get store grated Parmesan if you want, but I think fresh is best just because it has a more fresh flavor, obviously. And then you can use portobello, or you can use white sliced mushrooms, or you can use a combination. It can be anything that you want. So because I bought these ingredients fresh, we're using these today. And then obviously I have the Parmesan, which I grated just a little while ago because I know you don't want to watch me grate a cup of your Parmesan. And then you have heavy cream. This can't be low fat. This can't be skim milk or anything like that. This has to be heavy cream just because it helps bring the sauce together, and it is the foundation of the sauce. So with that said, let's move on over to the stove and start cooking this up. Okay, I've brought the ingredients over to where I'm gonna be cooking them, but I'm gonna give a few pointers. I don't know what your cooking level is, but I also don't wanna assume and not give you the best product that we are here doing together. So when you have your onion, it calls for only half an onion, which is all you need for this. You can add in more if you are an onion fan. But whenever you're cutting an onion, don't cut this part off. The reason being, we need to keep this intact and we're gonna dice it. So I'm gonna show you a quick dice on this, and I've already got my pan started, so we can just go ahead and get everything in. And just cut that other end off, but make sure that this stays on. And this is why. We're gonna come down like this. To do a dice, you're just gonna go across like this. And then this is the other cool trick. I'm just showing you like this, but you're gonna do 1, 2, 3 slices this way as well. Hold it steady and then go 1, 2, 3. Don't hurt yourself. And then your last cut is going to be down. So hold all your pieces down like this. And you can use the claw if you want to, but I have to use it like this just because otherwise the little slices come apart. So I tend to hold the bottom together. And then just do fine dice like this. Make sure you protect your fingers. Make sure you have a sharp knife. That's what you're looking for here. So that's just a quick tip on how to get a dice when you're doing onions. And hopefully that comes in handy for you. But as long as you keep this intact, the onion pieces stay together. If you have a few slices at the end because you didn't go all the way through, which happens to me quite often too, that's totally fine. Just chop up the rest of your onion so they're even sizes. Okay, so we've got our pan going over here. We're gonna add in our olive oil. Since we're not using that many ingredients, use a good quality olive oil, and about a couple tablespoons is what you need. So we'll let that get in a little shimmer. And then add in your ground sausage. Just move it around because you want to make sure that it comes apart. And if you're in a hurry, even though this meal comes together pretty quickly, if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead and add in the rest of your ingredients. But what that does is it doesn't allow proper browning for your meat, which is what you want. So if you do have a little bit of extra time, make sure you do this step, brown the meat first. And then if it releases too much liquid or oil or grease, you can drain it if you want to. Otherwise, you can add in your onions and garlic afterwards. So I'm gonna break this up. And while that's breaking up, I'm going to show you how to do our garlic. Move our onions aside. So use fresh garlic. And I just left this little clove so I can show you how I pop it out of its skin. You just take the clove of garlic, take your knife flat, and just smash it. And then the skin should come right off. So even though we don't need that much garlic, the recipe doesn't call for that much garlic. I love garlic, so I add in a lot. So just make sure you chop it up, and I'll show you another little trick on how to get it to be a paste, or close to a paste, so it's not huge chunks like this. So after you mince your garlic, like this. Ooh, one little guy got away. Try to get rid of as many of the big pieces as you can. And then take a little bit, and kosher salt works best, so take a little bit of kosher salt and then smash it like this. And the reason you're doing that is the salt acts as an abrasive and it helps break down that garlic. Okay, so now our garlic is done, our onions are chopped, and we're gonna get to our fresh herbs. I love fresh thyme just because it lends such a powerful flavor, and a lot of times people don't understand why your dish tastes so good, and it's almost always, for me, it's because I've been using fresh herbs. And the cool thing about fresh herbs is you can grow them yourself, so they're not very expensive, or you can buy them at the store and they're not very expensive. So this is a very cheap way to add a lot of flavor to any dish that you're cooking. So where you can find room for a recipe that, you know, has herbs in it and it's asking for dried, try to use fresh. So this is all destemmed means. We're just taking this stem, grabbing it at the top and just pulling the leaves down off the stems. That's it. And you can always use extra. You don't have to stick to what is being called for in a recipe, but you can see it comes off pretty easily. So get all of that off. Our meat's doing great over here. I'm going to move it around. Okay, and now we're going to move on to our rosemary. Same concept, except you're going to actually chop these because even during cooking, it doesn't soften up that much, and you don't want to get a big chunk of rosemary when you're eating, unless you like it. And this is very, very strong. So if you don't like very strong flavors, I would go easy on the rosemary. Thyme, I don't think is as strong as rosemary, but you're just going to take your rosemary and just chop it into little pieces. And you don't have to, you know, get it very uniform or anything. It just needs to be small enough to when you get it in your mouth, you don't have a whole piece of it in there. So, we're going to turn up the heat over here. Let's check on our pasta. Our pasta's doing great, I think. Yep. It's close to being done. Okay, our sausage is nice and brown, so if you took this extra step to do it first, what you did was you created another level of flavor. And all this brown stuff on the bottom of the pan, if you can get a close-up of that, all of that stuff when it's stuck there is called fond, and that's a lot of extra flavor. So that's not burnt, that is actual, like another level of flavor. So if you had put all of this in at the same time, it would have taken you a little bit longer to develop that, but it's fine for you to do that if you want to, especially if you want to save a little bit of time. But now now that we've got that foundational step done, we're gonna add in our onions, we're gonna add in our garlic, and our chopped up rosemary and thyme. And we're going to mix that up. We're going to cook this for a little bit. So again, you can do it either way. You can just dump everything in together, and it takes a little bit longer because both the onions and the mushrooms, they let off a lot of water. And so before it can get to this browning stage, what happens is you've got to cook off all that water. So it takes a little bit longer time, but you can do it if you want to. But I just prefer this way. I just wrote it like that for you in case you wanted to do it a little bit quicker. But this is another way, and I thought it would be good to demonstrate this for you as well. Okay, then add in your mushrooms. And at this point, depending on what kind of sausage you have and how much fat it's releasing, it might actually not have any, or it may have too much, depending on, like I said, the fat content. So mine is turkey, which, you know, turkey usually dries out pretty quickly. So it doesn't have as much fat in there, and it doesn't have a lot of water. So if you need to, if you've used turkey sausage and you find yourself in this same situation, feel free to add a little bit more olive oil to help brown things along. So that's what I'm going to do right here. But again, see what you've got and work with that. All right, we're gonna let this cook until it's all mixed together and gets nice and brown. Okay, we're getting pretty close with our sausage, but our pasta pasta is done. So what you're gonna do, before you drain your pasta, reserve some pasta water. And the reason is, it's cooked that pasta for a while and it's absorbed all the starches, so it's not regular water anymore, it's starchy water. And the reason that's important is if you don't want to add too much cream or milk or anything, actually if you don't want to add anything at all, you can add a cup of pasta water to this and it'll start creating its own sauce. So I like to keep a cup of it or half a cup of it or whatever you need. I need to keep a little bit of it. Before you drain it. One little guy got there. So I'm going to drain this really quickly. And we're going to pop it right back in here. So now that we've got our pasta water set aside, we're just going to focus on this. And you can see that the mushrooms are starting to wilt and they're starting to brown and it's looking really delicious. At this point, add in a little bit of salt and pepper. So I like to use kosher salt just because it tastes better to me and it's not as salty as iodized salt just because the flakes are bigger. And then I like to use fresh ground pepper. And taste as you go. You don't want to add too much. And remember, we salted the pasta water, so you want to make sure you don't over salt it because you're also adding a little bit of the pasta water. You're also adding some Parmesan, which is very salty. So if you don't like very salty things, start off very slow with the salt, and then you can add more later. So now that I've added a little bit of salt and pepper, we're going to add in the heavy cream. So I've got about a cup and a half of heavy cream. And let that bubble, and it's going to start to thicken up. And it makes such an incredible cream sauce. So you can see it's starting to bubble up. Let it thicken up, and you can reduce your heat from high to about medium because you don't want it to all evaporate very quickly. So let that thicken up, and then you remember all that Parmesan that I grated, and you grated, because I did mine ahead of time. Go ahead and add that in. It's about a cup. This is the kind of food you make for somebody you love, just because it has garlic and heavy cream and cheese, and only a person who loves you will not care how much garlic's in there. All right, that looks incredible. So again, you're gonna taste as you go, which is exactly what I'm gonna do right now. So take a second to taste it, make sure that you like it, that it's not too salty for you, that it has enough herbs for you. Feel free to add more herbs. Those were foundational recipes that you can add to. That tastes amazing. Okay, so you can do two things now. It's almost time to plate it. So you can either take your pasta and just put it on a plate and then spoon this over it, or you can mix it all up. It's all up to you, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to let this cook for a little bit longer and add in, I don't think I need that much pasta water, but I need just a little bit. Again, reserve it. If yours thickens up too much, then you can add in the rest of it. But like I said, reserve half a cup, and you end up using maybe a fourth of a cup, less than that maybe. All right, so we're gonna do option number 2 for me, which is my favorite. We're gonna take all of this and mix it into the pasta, and then serve it. And I can show you our pasta's dried a little bit, but it's still jiggly. Okay, you can take a look at this amazing sauce that we've created and the pasta that's together, this is what it should look like. And then when you serve it up, you can add fresh basil if you want to. You can add extra Parmesan, more cracked black pepper. But right now, we're gonna plate this up for you. Okay, our pasta came together pretty quickly. Of course, if you're doing this on your own on a weeknight, it comes together even faster because you're not teaching a class and stopping to explain stuff. So hopefully this is something you can incorporate into your weekly schedule or into your recipe rotation. But now we're gonna plate it up. And like I said, I prefer this because look at that. All the sauce, you see why we picked this pasta? You see how it just kind of grabs stuff in there? So you've got a little helper. All right, so I'm gonna plate this up. So you've got the sausage in there, all the herbs, cheese, cream, mushrooms. And this is a great recipe that you can also change up yourself. So if you don't want to have pasta that night, you don't want to have sausage that night, you can just do mushrooms and add in double mushrooms so it can be vegetarian for you. And if you don't want to use heavy cream, you can use coconut milk. It's not going to thicken up the same way. You're going to have to add in a little bit more flour. But you have the basic foundations of making something else too, or making it unique, or making it something that you want. You can add red pepper flakes to give it a kick, or any other herbs that you really like. So now that we've got this, we're gonna garnish it with some more fresh Parmesan, because why not? And if you like fresh basil, go ahead and use fresh basil too, because it really adds a great addition of flavor. But we already have these herbs, so I'm going to just sprinkle those, and I'm gonna try it now. So you can see how pretty that looks. Actually, it looks more comfortable, like you're sitting on the sofa and eating an incredible meal while watching a movie kind of a meal. But I hope you enjoyed making this. I'm gonna try this. It's so good. It's really hot, but so good. But please email me. I've listed my email number for you. Email me if you make this, if you have any questions, or you make this and you come across a problem that I didn't address here. I'm more than happy to help you even after this video is over, so we can make sure that you're confident in making this. But hopefully you enjoy it, and this is something that you can keep and use as a recipe later on and as your Christmas gift. So thank you so much for this recipe, and now we're gonna move on to our dessert. Okay, we're moving on to dessert now. We had a heavy meal, and the best way to end a heavy meal is with a dessert. So this one is gonna cool you off, because sometimes with heavy cream and Parmesan, you need something sweet at the end of the day. This one is called the tiramisu affogato, and the reason we're doing this today is because it's super easy, and it goes with the theme of this easy dinner, then you have this easy dessert. It doesn't take a lot, but it's still really impressive, and you don't need a lot of ingredients. So what you have is heavy whipping cream, a little bit of sugar, some good coffee. You can just use whatever you use in the morning. Don't have to make anything special, but get some good coffee ice cream. Haagen-Dazs, I don't get paid by them, happens to be one of my favorites, so that's what I use. And then a little bit of chocolate of any kind if you want to. Again, this is just for garnish purposes. It doesn't make or break the dessert. And then these are ladyfingers or Saviardi, and you need these hard ones, because sometimes your grocery store will have like the soft cake-like ones. I don't really like those just because they absorb too much of the liquid too fast, and what you're left with is a mushy kind of a dessert. So I try to stay away from that unless you're using it with like fresh fruit and whipped cream. But for tiramisu that's gonna get soaked with coffee, definitely use the harder ones. So we're gonna start, I'll get this opened up, and we're gonna whip our whipped cream. So take your heavy whipping cream, and you're gonna add in your sugar. It's just a couple of teaspoons. You can add more or less depending on what kind of sweetness level that you like. I think about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons is usually a good foundation. So I'm gonna get this whipped up, and then at the end, I'm gonna show you exactly what yours should look like. Don't overbeat it, because what you're gonna end up with is butter. Obviously that is where butter comes from. So don't overbeat your whipped cream. Just do it until it just kind of sticks to the bottom. So I'm gonna get started. and I'll Okay, so our whipped cream is almost to the level that I want it. So before I started this mixer again, I wanted to tell you, I'm gonna mix it for like a couple seconds more, but I wanna show you the consistency. So it should be like this, where it just sticks onto your mixer, and you can see the little peaks that stand up here. You don't want to go any further than that, just because that's when you go into butter territory. Okay, so this affogato, it comes together extremely quickly. I mean, very quickly. What affogato even means is it's just such a fancy word for coffee and ice cream. That's it. So the tiramisu aspect is bringing in the ladyfingers and the coffee ice cream. If you want to get a little bit fancier with this, you can also do a little bit of whipped mascarpone and then layer it like that, or do a little bit of cream cheese if you don't want to mess with that. But anyways, you can build onto this as well. It's really easy. It's really impressive when people have it because they're like, oh, wow, I never thought about doing all of this together. But obviously you can see it's barely 3 or 4 ingredients. So all we're going to do now is assemble it. We've got some really hot coffee. And again, this can be your choice of anything that you want. We've got your coffee ice cream, we got our ladyfingers and our whipped cream all ready to go. So now we're gonna assemble it. We're gonna do about 2 or 3, depending on the size of your cups. And then again, you can just break these up. So I like to do a little bit on the bottom too, so you can layer it. So we're doing just a few pieces. And you can assemble this however you like. I'm going to use a little spoon so I just don't, you know, put this all over the place. I'm scared it's going to, no, I was right. So I'm just going to do this to save the mess. And you don't need a lot of it. You can see it's already absorbing it, and then we'll save the rest of the coffee for later. You do your coffee ice cream. And I like to do a couple of scoops here just because it's so good. This got messy quick. But that's okay because you're gonna have a dessert to show for it. And then do a couple more. Like I said, you can layer it. If you have mascarpone, you can do that. But we're just gonna do like this. And if you get a bigger cup, you can just keep going, keep layering as much as you want. All right, this time I'm gonna be smart and do it over the sink just so it doesn't fall. So we're gonna just do a little bit more coffee like this. You can see it's kind of floating in there. And then the rest of the coffee in here. Actually, I have a little bit more I can do in this. All right, you can see it's already starting to soak up all of that yummy goodness. We'll take these out. We don't want to waste too much of that. And use our spoon to put this over it. So you're getting coffee and dessert in one go, which I think is pretty cool. And again, this chocolate is for garnishing purposes only. Just tidy that up a little bit. And if you don't have like a little micro zester or anything like that, just use a peeler, just like a regular peeler. Or if you have cocoa powder, just sprinkle a little bit of that on there. But basically, it's just for garnish. See those little curls coming out? It just makes it look pretty. That's it. And if you like chocolate, you also have that component. All right. There you go. There's your fancy dessert that barely took 5 minutes. I mean, it made a little bit of a mess, but you can control that. You can learn from me and pour it over the sink or get a better cup. But anyways, that is just your ladyfingers, coffee ice cream, and a little bit of whipped cream. And it makes such, like you can tell, this is like so cute and so pretty. and it's a really great ending to the meal that we just had. So I'm gonna go ahead and try a little bit of this. And look at that, the Saviardi that was so hard, it's already softened up. And it's so good. This one's obviously not hot, it's very cold. But it tastes like a latte and dessert all in one. But, sorry, I'm eating. But I wanna thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this and make these recipes with you guys tonight. Again, you have my email. If you have any questions at all, or if I wasn't clear about something or missed something entirely, or you have any kind of questions or troubleshooting, please let me know, because I get so much joy out of doing these classes, but I get even more joy out of knowing that somebody who's watching is able to do this themselves and feel confident. So thank you again for being here, and even though we can't all be together, we can do something fun virtually, and this was a great experience for me as well. So thank you guys again.
Okay, that was so much fun. We're so excited to try our meal, and I hope you guys had a great night, that you had fun with your family, that you get to try a new meal and love it. We had that wine pairing. I hope you enjoyed trying a new wine, and have a great Christmas.
I'm super excited to eat this. This looks amazing. We just want to say thank you from all of us at PCA for your trust in us. This has been an incredibly odd year, but we are thankful that you continue to rely on us as your trusted IT advisor. And from all of us at PCA, Merry Christmas.